Now, this is an interesting thing here. Mark Grimes, the councillor, on the radio called for people to come and block this area and shut it down. And I've never, in my time, decades of covering city council, heard a councillor could actually say something like that. That he actually said that he wants them to shut it down and to block the roadway, and he's going to close this business down. Now, everybody has rights in this country. It's a free country. And this gentleman has rights. If he's broken a rule, he can go to court. Only there, I'm sorry, but only there can they decide whether he's guilty of all the things here today. And that hasn't happened, and nobody cares about that. And I'll tell you, they better start caring about it, because it's only a matter of time before they come to your door, or my door, or Ezra's door. And you know what? Like, again, handled beautifully by 22 Division, and now we're into a situation where it reminds me of something you might see in North Korea.
Well, folks, I'm with Joe Warmington, a.k.a. the Scrawler. He's with the Toronto Sun, a friend of our show, and one of the true, genuine good guys in the mainstream media. Joe, you were down here as I was just hours ago. Hundreds of people here, a lineup right out of the store, buying brisket and ribs and turkey. And now, all of a sudden, the mainstream media is still here reporting live, but it looks like Adamson Barbecue has been shut down. So I saw a notice from the Board of Health in the window. What happened so rapidly in just the last 3 or 4 hours?
Well, again, some of this is my speculating on it and reading into it, my experience, but some of it is actual fact. I mean, the staff superintendent, Barkley, came down here, and I don't think I've ever heard it in my 30 years of covering the Toronto Police. He actually said they made a mistake earlier, and they reversed it, and they crossed their signals on how to handle this here today.
And sorry, Joe, the mistake was what exactly?
The mistake was to not arrest and close it down earlier. And you saw Inspector Tim Crone, who's a very, very good cop from 22 Division, in my estimation, handled it beautifully. The police were good. You were in there.
Yep.
Everybody was respectful. There was no issues. Everybody was doing their job. And, we understand that. They have to investigate it. They looked into it, and there was no tickets issued today. And I thought that was well handled. They can talk about it. They can think about it, think of options. My speculative part is that obviously because the Toronto Star and the left and all of that were so outraged, and they really went after that whether it's the Premier's office or whether it's the Mayor's office, or you can just imagine, I don't know for sure, but the discussions would have been to change that thing, and they sent the staff superintendent down here, I believe. And so
really the staff superintendent threw Mr. Crone under the bus.
Completely threw him under the bus.
Yep.
Completely threw. Unprecedented what happened here today. Tim Crone is a very highly thought of police officer. Handled it beautifully today. I talked to him as he left, and he said that there'd be no enforcement today. They would properly investigate it. He didn't say there wouldn't be enforcement. Of course there's going to be enforcement. There were rules that were broken here today, defying the law, etc. Of course there's going to be something, and I think in the case of Adam Skelly, he was expecting that, and people were too. They were giving him money for his legal defense fund. That was the whole point of this. But what's happened here instead is that what was handled well, now there's a hammer been brought down, and the question is why? Who did it? And I think that if we're any kind of media, we need to know that. We need to know who was it that told the staff superintendent to come down here. Was it the chief that did that, or was it the politicians, or was the pressure too much? I don't know what you think of it, because if you're on the other side of the issue, you might say, well, they need to shut them down, and then that they did the right thing. And if you're on the side of the issue about freedom then you're going to take the position that it's an anomaly and you need to do it. I want to say one other thing I think is important, and that is that this guy didn't ask anybody to come here today.
Yeah.
He was open, and people came down here at their own risk. His staff was very professional. They were all masked. They were cleaning the place up, and they were doing what they do, which is serve excellent food. Anybody who came here took the risk themselves. Now, did he break a rule? Yes. But if he'd gone into the middle of Yonge Street and been talking about Antifa, he may have had senior police officers, the deputy chief and the former chief, actually come and join the protest, and that would be okay. So there's a real juxtaposition in the approaches. Now, this is an interesting thing here. Mark Grimes, the councillor, on the radio called for people to come and block this area and shut it down. And I've never, in my time, decades of covering city council, heard a councillor could actually say something like that. That he actually said that he wants them to shut it down and to block the roadway, and he's going to close this business down. Now, everybody has rights in this country. It's a free country. And this gentleman has rights. If he's broken a rule, he can go to court. Only there, I'm sorry, but only there can they decide whether he's guilty of all the things here today. And that hasn't happened, and nobody cares about that. And I'll tell you, they better start caring about it, because it's only a matter of time before they come to your door, or my door, or Ezra's door. And you know what? Like, again, handled beautifully by 22 Division, and now we're into a situation where it reminds me of something you might see in North Korea.
And Joe, I think you're right. I think this is all about the political people behind the scene. Maybe it's Ford, maybe it's Tory, who knows. But it's all about them acting very fast to curb the virus. And when I say the virus, I don't mean the Wuhan virus. I mean the virus of economic freedom. You saw the celebratory atmosphere in the air today. Yeah. You know there are thousands of restaurant and pub owners watching this intently. Hey, they've got nothing but time on their hands these days. And if he got away with it...
And they're facing not having Christmas presents for their kids. Yeah. I mean, look at Premier Ford and Mayor Tory have they're okay. They're millionaire type people. Their grandkids are going to have all the, they're not going to have to worry about turning off their heat. I mean, this is the thing. Not one public servant has taken a pay cut, and I don't want them to lose their money. But my goodness, in a place like this where they have to come down and say, all they had to do was hand the guy what bylaw did he break, give him the ticket, and that's the end of it. But
and Joe, I want to talk about the double standard. You alluded to it earlier by saying if he was an Antifa protester, and this isn't speculation. In late June into July, we had a group called Afro-Indigenous Rising. They illegally occupied Nathan Phillips Square, literally the town square in Toronto. They were breaking 11 sections of the Trespass Act. They were urinating, defecating, fornicating, littering, putting on gas stoves, camping overnight, you name it. The mayor and the authorities put up with 3 weeks of that garbage. And here we have an entrepreneur just trying to stay alive, his back against the law, and they are coming down like a papal bull on him. It seems to me in John Tory's Sanctuary City, one law for the makers, another law for the takers.
Well, there's a lot of things wrapped up in what you said there, but on the point is, you make an excellent point, and I was there as well, and I understand we were both written up by security. So it's almost like a place like you'd see in the old Soviet Union where they keep track of us and they're probably taking notes of us now. People should be scared. But you're right, if this guy, Mr. Skelly, had have taken a tent, and because there was food area on Nathan Phillips Square, they had their own kitchen, and set up his thing right there and say, everybody come around camp, as long as it's for Antifa, or any kind of leftist outfit, anti-government, all that, Tory wouldn't say a word.
You're right. Maybe his folly was he didn't wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, Joe.
You know what? It's a question that has to be asked. But the thing is, with this guy Tory and Premier Ford and the like of that, you have to be a trained SEAL. If you want to be part of that media party out there, they didn't come in and cover the story. They stayed on the sidewalk. Yeah. You guys were in there, and I went in there. And why?
And why is that, Joe? Why didn't they come in and get their hands dirty, so to speak?
I don't know why. I don't want to speak for them, but I'll tell you why I did. Because the health department went in there, so obviously they weren't worried about it. The bylaw enforcement people went in there, and the Toronto police, and where they go, I go. If I'm covering a story involving that kind of authority, I go where they go. And that's why I went in there. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I don't want to be on the sidewalk where the story isn't. I want to be inside where the story is. And the story here is huge. This is a big day in Canada. This will be remembered in history. The barbecue uprising was, quelled very quickly by the authority, and I think that that's important. Now, you can have a different point of view on it. I know there are different points of view on it, and I think that's good. I think that's healthy. Let's have that debate. And I'll tell you where you have that debate. You have that in a court of law. You have it in a court of law. We still have laws here, and we still have, this guy should be able to go and defend himself and go before a court and say, look, I've got a little kid, I've got a family, I'm going out of business, I've put all my whole life savings into this, and I want to make the point of trying to stay afloat. And maybe a jury would see it that way. That's called basic law.
But Joe, in 2020, the biggest lie of the year thus far is the phrase, we are all in this together. You and I, my friend, can walk 400 meters to the west, and there is a Costco. The parking lot is it's packed, it's jammed. And they run a restaurant in Costco. How come they can serve up burgers and fries here, and this guy gets the book thrown at him for making some brisket in a facility that's a fraction of that size with a fraction of that number of people? Can you possibly explain the double standard here?
Well, that's why this needs to go to court, and I think that it needs to go, obviously, the legal route as well in terms of a lawsuit. But that's up to him. I mean, we'll cover it whatever he decides to do. I'm not saying that Costco, I know you're not either saying Costco shouldn't operate. Of course they should. There's nothing wrong with them operating. There's nothing wrong with this guy operating.
But only one is operating.
I know, and that's what's wrong. And so the reality of it is that, and this is really, really important because you can see that it's not going to, and I knew this was going to happen at some point. I just thought it might be a little later in the week. I didn't think that they would come down this quick. But when you think about it and you think about the authoritarian kind of players involved and how they don't really, because they've given tickets to people walking their dogs and rollerblading, done a lot less than this guy. This guy spit in their face and said, you know what, I'm going to operate anyway. He's a gutsy person, and he knew he was going to get in trouble, and he is in trouble.
Hey folks, if you can, please go to journalistdefensefund.com. If you're able to, make a donation. Sometimes we have lawyers to pay, other times it's bodyguards, but it's worth it when it comes to bringing you the other side of the story.